Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tech Informist, where we will inform you, our listeners, about the technological industry, apps you should download on your favorite gadgets, and much, much more. My name is JJ Hammond. Are you ready to be informed? Of course you are. Up first, our guest for the show. No secret, he is a syndicated writer and the author of the Android Power blog. He reviews phones, tablets, smartwatches, and Chromebooks, and occasionally sleeps. How dare you, sir? You can find him on Google+, Twitter, or anywhere else that pastries are sold. The one, the only. Now, and I'm going to say this the right way. It's JR Raphael.
Indeed. Hello. Thanks for having me. Yeah, a little known fact
welcome
on
to
the
the
last
show.
name pronunciation. Hey, thanks. Glad to be here.
We really appreciate you being on. You're one of those people, dude, I'm telling you, I told you this before the show, you're one of those people that I can immediately tell are just an awesome dude right out of the gate. So thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
However, Kevin Harvell, the creator of STL Tech Talk, the Tech Informist, Codecast by STL Tech Talk, and much, much more. Hello and welcome to the show, sir.
Hello, everybody. JJ, JR, glad to see you guys this afternoon.
Yep. And don't forget, everyone, you can visit the Tech Informist. It's really not that hard. TheTechInformist.com for all of our past shows. Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott, Ed Bott, for example, Daniel Rubino, Phil Nickinson, let's see, Jerry Hildenbrand, and the list goes on and on. Awesome people. And now we have JR with us. So come on, you need to listen to all the past episodes because they're awesome. Also, I want you to go to stltechtalk.com to keep up with all of our tech news. Also, check out Codecast by STL Tech Talk. That's codecaststl.com. And that's where, if you're into coding or programming, you can learn how to code and program from industry leaders and fun and lively commentary with, of course, your one and only truly me and my co-host Gus Emery, who's a phenomenal guy. I think you would really like the show. Also, if you want to interact with this show, you can send us feedback to contact at STL. Sorry, Kevin. Contact at thetechinformist.com. Jeez, we just did that show just a little bit earlier. Don't beat me up too bad, listener. Contact at thetechinformist.com or hit us up on Twitter at Tech Informist because there's only so many characters because we wanted we just couldn't shimmy it in there. And if you want to hit us and all that jazz throughout the show or do the Q&A, you can do it that way or tweet to us, whatever. So thank you, and give us just a few moments. We'll answer your questions in a timely manner. So we want to thank the sponsors of the show, Unidev. If you dream it, they can build it. They create custom software, end-to-end development, beautiful web design, and creative marketing solutions. They've been in business for the last 25 years, so they're solid. With 200-plus customers right now, 24/7 support, you will not be let down or left out in the creation of your dreams. If you want software development, content management systems, mobile development, e-commerce solutions, digital marketing and hosting, go to our website, stltechtalk.com, and click on their banner and get the high-quality service you deserve today. Now, I know I threw a lot of links out there, but trust me, when you listen to this back, you're going to love it, because you're going to enjoy every single one of those interactions. So let's get to the reason why we're all here, and that is to talk to JR. JR, tell us a little bit about you and what got you into being a tech journalist.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've kind of always been interested and passionate about gadgets, always been a bit of a geek since I was a kid, building computers in my parents' house and that kind of thing. So I kind of fell into this haphazardly, to be honest. That's always been an interest of mine and kind of a hobby of mine. And before this, I was working in more traditional journalism. I worked in TV news as a news producer and writer, and I liked a lot of things about it, but I was kind of ready to do something different, and this opportunity came along, and one thing led to another. Here I am today. I've got to say it's a lot more fun to write about phones and tablets and operating systems than it is to write about politics and murder and hurricanes, which is what I was doing before. So it's a nice change.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's tough. But it's kind of weird, right? Because did you feel when you were doing those things and before you made the transition, did you feel a certain obligation to those stories because they are important, even though they are either depressing or it seems as though people like to consume news but don't like to do anything about it? So what was that like?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I mean, every day was really something different. You could be doing presidential or a local political race one day, and then severe storms the next day, and then who knows what. And sometimes it's depressing, sometimes it's enlightening. But you do kind of have to live whatever it is, and you become an expert, to some degree, surface level, I guess you'd say, expert in whatever the topic is, and you kind of immerse yourself in it. So yeah, it was exhausting. I mean, it was always exhilarating and exciting, but definitely exhausting too. Yeah, and anything can be stressful, of course. What writing about this stuff, there are days where you feel stressful too, but it's different. It's not life and death the way it is there. And hey, it's all relative. You're still not like in an ER saving lives, so you can't really complain too much compared to what some folks out there do.
Well, no, true, but I mean, it's definitely an admirable field. I enjoy journals. I've read some of your work, and I like it a lot. I think there's a certain art to it. I'm not good at it. Kevin is, but and you are. It's tough. Do you think if there was a hot person standing in front of a hurricane or disaster zone, that it would bring more attention to those sorts of things? No, I'm just kidding. We were talking about the Costa Rican models before the show. So when you moved over to being a tech journalist, how much of the other journalism techniques did you use, or did you kind of have to rework your style?
No, it definitely, one thing leads to another. Coming from TV news, you kind of learn to write in a more conversational style, which lends itself well to, talking about gadgets and doing things in a little more informal sense, and just kind of talking to people instead of writing like what you'd read from the Associated Press or something that's a little more formal and, kind of following the rules sort of thing. And, that aside, the principles are all the same, as far as ethics and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. So I think it definitely applies for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for indulging me in that very long question. Kevin, you're up with the next question.
Now, JR, you write primarily about Android. I would assume that you're an Android user, obviously, and you do the Android Power column blog per se over at Computerworld.com. What is it about Android that draws you to that mobile OS as opposed to iOS and Windows Phone or BlackBerry?
Well, it's interesting. I became an Android user before I became, I guess, what you'd call an Android writer. I was writing about technology and had covered Android a little bit, writing sort of more general stuff back when Android was kind of in its infancy. And then it was actually, which I think, happened to have it in a great coincidence sitting right next to me, this bad boy, which looks kind of hilarious today, the original Moto Droid, that kind of drew me in personally. I'm sure you guys, probably most people watching or listening, remember the massive marketing campaign of Droid, and the robots dropping stuff down to massive craters in the earth, and it's a kind of a great defining moment that really put Android on the map. Not the first Android phone by any means, but really the first Android phone that mattered in any broad sense and made Android a household name, or at least Droid a household name.
Right.
So for me, that kind of drew me in, and as I was covering it and learning about it, I was immediately intrigued by how much you could do with it. I was never a big iOS user. I had like an iPod Touch. I didn't own an iPhone before that. The Droid was actually my first, well, no, technically my second smartphone that I personally owned. Before that, I had a really crappy Windows Phone. It was like Windows Phone 6.5, one of those ones that was manufactured by HTC before HTC was anybody that you cared about.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, but the way you could do so much with it, you could customize it, you could make it look and work the way you want. You could have things, granted they seem rudimentary now compared to what we're seeing and doing with Android phones, but you had stuff like Tasker, you could make it do all this cool stuff. As a geek, that all just appealed to me and seemed so much more interesting than the static row of icons that you're going to get on iOS, which fine for a lot of folks, it never really quite held a whole lot of appeal to me. So Android drew me in, and then the more I used it, the more I started writing about it, and then it just kind of became sort of my focus, like it is today.
Nice. That's cool. So have you collected all of the Android phones that you could possibly try and collect them all type?
If only, yeah. If only. I wish I did. I have a small collection of ones that I've owned personally over the years. Most of the ones I use are just review units that I'll have for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then they get sent back. But I've got a little bit of a lineup of ones I've owned, since I started with that one. There's a Galaxy Nexus around here somewhere, and there's a Nexus S in a drawer. Nexus 4s over there. So I've got a little bit of a lineup, and I try to put them to use around. Sometimes I keep them for testing purposes for random things, or I've got one that I kind of turned into a desk dock/clock here, and try to find different creative uses for them to put them to a little bit.
I'm putting together a backdrop of devices. It's not back there right now, but I'm going to have a backdrop of all the different phones that I have, because I have a lot of different generations of phones. So if anybody's looking to donate phones for my cool backdrop, I would really appreciate that. But I don't know. I'm a collector of things. I have figurines back there. I've got, well, I was showing these guys before, the Ninja Turtles and all that other kind of stuff. But what specifically, what was it about? So donate to the show. That's you can contact at thetechinformist.com.
Hey, you got it right. Good job.
What? Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know. I'm medicated now, so we're good. So what was it about Android that specifically, though, that continued to kind of keep, because Android wasn't awesome right out of the gate, right? There was a lot of kind of some issues. I wanted to check out the Droid definitely, but it was just locked down to Verizon, which made it kind of difficult for me because Verizon wasn't very big in my area yet. So I was kind of either stuck with an iPhone or those early Windows or BlackBerry or Palm even at the time. But what was it specifically that just kept you in that? Kept you in that sphere of Android? Was it the customization, or, kind of tell me a little bit about your psychology behind that?
Well, I think it was a combination of two things that held and has continued to hold my interest personally. It's the customization and, more broadly, just how much you can do with it. It's beyond just running apps. And I'm not really big. There was a while when I, would get into this. These days, I'm not really big into rooting and messing with custom ROMs. Been there, but at this point, I feel like I can pretty much accomplish what I want within the parameters of a stock Android setup. So I haven't really messed with any of that in a while. But even less extreme than that, just all the things you can do with it, whether it's Tasker, getting a custom launcher, a custom switcher kind of setup. There's so many ways you can make it work the way you want that, even focusing on this for however many hours a day, I feel like every day, every week, every day, perhaps I find something new I can do. It's like, oh, I could do this better. Here's a way to do this, or this would work really well for my brother. You come across things that just new ways you can expand and tweak and change it and make it work for you. And I think too, a lot of people, especially in the early days of Android, took that to mean it's only for geeks. But the truth is, as we all know, that's not the case, because you don't have to get in and do all sorts of crazy stuff just to enjoy it. If you get the right phone out of the box, it's going to provide a pretty good experience, and maybe with a little bit of, if you know the right things to do or know somebody who does, you might be able to improve it and do some cool stuff on top of that, but you certainly don't have to. And then, the other part is just the constant change of the hardware, whereas, if you're looking at an iOS-style operating system, you're getting, one, maybe two or three phones a year that are, let's be honest, pretty similar. Maybe one's a little bigger, a little different, but, an iPhone's an iPhone, and they evolve a little bit. Whereas on Android, I mean, you've got a massive, diverse array of options, and it's to an overwhelming state sometimes where it seems like every 2 weeks there's something new and something different. But, from a more of a compact phone to a giant phone to one that's made of glass, of plastic, at this point, you can get leather, wood. With the Moto X, you can get a phone that you can make look any way you want. Just the ever-changing array of options. And then going beyond phones, now we've got, of course, all the different kinds of tablets, watches. We're moving into cars. You can't really be bored because there's something new every 2 minutes.
There's always, and especially with Google and Android, there's always either manufacturers and or Google themselves, like the Nexus Q, they just go here. They're like Samsung. They're just like, just throw everything at it and see what happens, and that's cool because a lot of innovation comes out of that stuff, right? Like, and I like watching that stuff. It's not the kind of monolithic Apple model where we're going to tell you what you want. Which is, that's cool in its own right because you can kind of a little bit change stuff around, but it's pretty static. It's not as dynamic as Android. And I love seeing all the different customizations that people put on Google Plus. Holy moly! Like the steampunk, themes or cyberpunk, all the different kinds of things. I'm like, wow, that is really intense. That is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I did a little.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I did a little contest. Gosh, it must have been a year or two ago now, for people to submit and show off their coolest home screens, and not even talking like crazy ROM modifications, just stuff you can do, mainly just with the right launcher, the right icon, theme set, things like that. And man, people come up with some just awesome creative stuff, and that's all part of it too. Like if you want to get creative, you can make your phone look and work any way you possibly want. I mean, there's a solution out there for almost every need or desire you would have.
Yeah, I was looking through Google Plus yesterday and saw somebody had posted looked like a Christmas tree, and he had an icon pack where his icons were either red circles or green circles. I'm like, that's just, it was really cool looking to see what he had done with that. I'm like, wow.
Where does one find the time to do that? I want to know how that's possible. No, I'm sure there's an easier way to do things than the way I do them, which is the long way and always the hardest. So moving on from that a little bit, what apps? So and devices. What was your? We'll go into apps in just a second, but what was your first favorite device review that you ever did?
That I reviewed. Let's see. So going back to the actual original Droid, that was before I was doing reviews. I was doing more just kind of straightforward coverage. I'd say, gosh, maybe the Galaxy Nexus, if I just had to pick one.
Okay.
That was kind of when we started to get into the ice cream sandwich era of Android, and things were really starting to mature, relative to where they've been before. And it kind of felt like the beginning of something new and exciting and a new era for Android, which, of course, feels a little deja vu like, because we're saying that nowadays too with Lollipop, but at the time that was the probably the biggest reinvention we'd seen, and so that was pretty
really
exciting.
Jump.
Yeah.
That's cool. And what was, like, looking back on it, so silly, but what was like the probably one of the coolest features about that made you pick that as your, like, what feature set? What did it do? Was it the UI or what was it?
I think for me it was probably just the UI and the user experience as a whole. I mean, there were certainly a lot of new bells and whistles there, but all in all, Android just started to feel a little more polished, a little more cohesive, a little less like a geeky terminal kind of thing, which was cool at the time, of course, but it needed to mature and grow, and that was the first time where it really started to feel like a semi-polished overall user experience. We're like, hey, this is something you could, your mom could pick up, or someone who's not tech savvy could pick up and use and be like, this is pretty nice. It has some polish to it. All relative. Nowadays, we look back at that and compare it to Lollipop, it looks like archaic days. But at the time, it was such a massive leap forward.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the holidays. And let's talk a little bit about what's going on now, because a lot of people are looking at either new phones or new tablets, smartwatches for the first time, Chromebooks, that sort of thing. What sticks out to you as a good, like, some of the better devices that you've reviewed?
Well, I'll say off the bat that I think this year more than ever, and hopefully this will continue more and more every year, but what's really impressive to me this year is that we actually have a great lineup of just solid devices. I mean, usually in years past, there's you have little asterisks that something for everybody, whatever you like, but for me in past years it's always been kind of like, if you really want a great phone, you probably want to get the Nexus, whatever it is. And then last year it kind of became, you can get the Nexus or you can get the Moto X, so we've got another new option. And not to knock, people love the Samsung phones. For me, not quite up there in terms of user experience, in terms of build quality. When I'm personally recommending something, they're usually not the ones that I would suggest just for general purposes. And then this year, here we are, we've got, the Nexus 6, we've got the Moto X, you've got the HTC One, the M8. I mean, there's just, it's cool that there are so many good ones. I just recently reviewed a couple of the Sony phones, which are a little harder to find in the States, which is a shame. But I mean, the Xperia Z3 and Z3 Compact, I mean, are just awesome devices. So there's really a big lineup of possibilities. It's not limited to just one or two that are like, these are the ones to get, and that's cool to see for me. Personally, I love the Moto X, the 2014 Moto X, a lot. If I had to pick one favorite for myself, that would probably be the one. But the M8 would be right up there below it, or maybe alongside it somewhere there. And Sony's phones would be right up there for me as well. They're all just great overall user experience, which is really what I tend to look at and focus on.
Yeah, so really a great time to be a smartphone fan. Somebody that always getting asked recommendations. It's tough to really pick just one because there's so many great options, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you kind of have to laugh a little when you see somebody say this is the best Android phone you can get. And
You're like, stop, just stop.
yeah, and what's hilarious is, I'm not going to name any sites or names, but you look at certain publications, and in March it'll be this is the best Android phone ever made. In May it's another the best Android phone ever made. August we see it again. November we see it again.
Right.
So yeah, they're all the best Android phone ever made.
Yeah,
sure.
it's
I mean,
like
it really
we all
kind
know
of comes down to
they're going to get better over time. We all know that.
I took what I learned from the PC days, right, before we had more smart, and people were like, what PC should I get, or what, and my answer now for anything, any kind of device is, what do you want to use it for?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you use right now, and what do you want to use it for? Because without that knowledge, I can't tell you how and what device is going to be more effective for you. Like, you don't need a quad HD screen, or you don't need all these other things. You just need these things to do these things well. And when you think about that, and that's what kind of makes Android nice, is because you have so many options to where you could probably hit a couple of different things in one shot. So if you were to say, best camera or whatever, I really want to do the camera, and the screen's a big deal to me. Well, then you're probably going to want to go with X. You know what I'm saying? There's things you can point to that are better than others, but you're not saying that one device is going to be, the best device or whatever. One of the questions that I've always wanted to know, because I'm a Windows person, I'm a Microsoft ecosystem kind of guy. But from your standpoint, what's the most, like, the deal with Samsung having so much dominance over Android? Is that a good thing? Or because every time I turn around, the LG G3 is a gorgeous phone. The HTC One is also amazing. But we don't see a lot of those. What we see a lot of is like the Notes, right, or the GS5s. What do you think about that for Android? Is that a problem? Because I really like my Lollipop on my Nexus 5, but when I go to a Nexus or a Samsung phone, I'm like, bleh. There's no way I could use this. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, TouchWiz is a tough pill to swallow. I think most people who are into Android, yeah, it's a little rough. I mean, look, Samsung being so dominant, you can't deny is a huge part of what made Android as big as it is today. If Samsung hadn't come along, I mean, who knows? Maybe someone else would have stepped up to the plate. But the way it is today happened largely because of Samsung selling gazillions of phones.
Right.
That being said, I think like with anything, a lot of it really just comes down to marketing and brand recognition. They were in the right place at the right time. They did the right stuff, and now they are the name. You talk to a typical non-geek kind of person, they might not even know what Android is, but they're sure as hell going to know what the Galaxy phone is. I mean, whether or not they know the specifics. So, yeah, I mean, they've got the brand recognition, and yeah, as we've seen now, I mean, there are phones out there that, whether or not you want to say they're better, they're certainly as good as, some people would argue better than the Galaxy S5, but the Galaxy S5 is the phone someone walks into the AT&T store and says, hey, I want a phone, they're probably going to push that or the iPhone most likely.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a bad thing, but
okay.
The competition is good, and it'd be nice to see, you don't want any one company to be dominant, because then you run into a situation where they can kind of call the shots on some level to some degree, and that's probably not great for innovation and creativity and competition down the road. But hopefully more and more other people catch up. And
specifically the OS. I mean, Lollipop, I really, and I don't care what people say, but I really like the user interface. I love the UI. I mean, I know I can customize it all, no get out, but in general, that material design is gorgeous. And then you hop onto a Samsung and you're like, oh my God, really? I mean, because I could see a lot more people using Samsung hardware if it was running Lollipop and Android L in the material design. I mean, I don't know if that's a similar thought you have or not, but
yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of frustrating and a little sad when you realize that you hear typical consumers talking about the problems with Android, and man, this doesn't run well, and gosh, it's so clunky and it's ugly and this and that. And you realize that most of what their impression of Android is what they're seeing on certain manufacturer phones, largely Samsung phones.
Yes,
so
yes.
to most people, TouchWiz is Android, and
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's hard to recommend a Samsung phone because of that software experience. And if you know what you're doing and you want to change the software, more power to you. But you know, if my mom is going to walk into the store and buy a phone and walk out with it, that's not the experience I would want her to have necessarily. I'd rather her
Right.
have, like what you said, the lollipop experience, which is, you know, just great, intuitive, beautiful, a joy to use, instead of kind of making you want to scratch your eyes out with the nearest sharp object.
No, why? And, you know, like Kevin said, the Star Wars scream of no, or my South Park scream of no. But so let's talk about tablets and smartwatches. These are things that are tablets are interesting to me only because when you look at a phone and the size of the phones, the size that phones are getting, right? Even with the 6 Plus, the iPhone 6 Plus, you see a lot less iPad Minis around because of the size of this phone, and the Moto X and the Moto the newest Nexus 6. What is that like? I mean, do you see a lot of people giving you hits on people that want to check out tablet reviews and smartwatches, because those are kind of things that are not necessarily like a huge market, right, anymore?
Yeah, well, and Android tablets never really took off, I guess, you know, according to the market research, in the same way that maybe tablets on the whole have. I don't know if there's any massive one winner that you'd say that people love, that's just kind of spread out and here and there. And, you know, some of that fault may lie with Google. I was having a conversation on, I think it was Google Plus the other day, with someone about how in the 10-inch form, you know, Lollipop, there's still a lot of weird things where it just doesn't look like they've quite focused on getting the OS optimized for that big of a form. But yeah, I mean, like you said, now that phones are getting increasingly large, there's that sort of space where you're like, okay, if I have this giant, like, let's see here, this Nexus 6 or a phone like this, and then you hold that up next to the Nexus 7 or, you know, any other 7-inch tablet, it's like, do you need to have two of those there? And it's the question of, you know, how many gadgets we really need. You reach this point where it's a 6-inch phone that much different from a 7-inch tablet.
And the screen on the 6 inches is gorgeous. I mean, you don't have to hold it as close to your face as, say, people were used to with the smaller screen iPhones or the smaller screen phones of the past.
Yeah, and it's all trade-offs. You know, if you're comfortable carrying around a thing like that in your pocket and holding it in your hand all day, then you know, there's probably not as much of a need for you to have a 7-inch tablet. Maybe, you know, the Nexus 9 or say like a Galaxy Note 10 or something would appeal to you more. But
Right.
it's tricky. I think for people who use smaller phones, there's still a definite argument that, you know, when you're home, you pick up the 7-inch tablet or whatever 8-9-inch tablet, and you have that, so you have a larger screen. But once you get these gigantic phones, I mean, it is kind of designed to really be your one device, I think, for most people. So there's not the need. And the smartwatches are just so new that I think for a lot of people it's still kind of waiting and watching. But that'll be a fascinating area to see unfold, how, you know, as it develops in the next 6 months, year, give or take.
Oh, I think it's going to be gorgeous. What smartwatch do you use personally?
So the one I own, which, oh, here we go, is the Moto 360, which I bought shortly after it came out. But I'm kind of in the process of using and getting to know several of the others and working on a comparison of those. So right now I'm wearing the Asus Zen watch.
Nice. I heard that was gorgeous.
You know, I have mixed feelings on it. It is gorgeous when you look at it, in terms of the design. Here, I'll take it off so I can actually hold it up. You know, you've got this nice looking band. It's actually made of metal on the back. You know, if you like the square form, it's got the curved glass. My one complaint with it, and it is something it's hard to avoid, is that the screen just is not great. It really reminds me of the original Samsung Gear Live that launched with Android Wear back in I/O. It's they went with AMOLED technology, which on a phone can be great. In this watch form, at least in this implementation, when the watch is in its dimmed state, which is kind of the way it goes most of the time when you're not actively using it, I don't know if you'll be able to tell. You probably won't be able to tell here. I'm also confused as to which way to move it to get in the camera.
I know,
but
right?
yeah, all sorts of confused. it ends up looking really just pixelated, jagged. You can see a lot of lines, and when you're glancing down at your wrist, that's what you see most of the time. And yeah, you're not putting up your eye and holding it, but it's enough that you notice it. And then the other downside is when you're outside. When I went out to lunch just a little bit before this, I tried to glance down at the watch, and in sunlight, it's just like you can't see anything on it, which was what we had seen with the original Gear Live and G-Watch, and unfortunately that's the case with this one too. So, again, trade-offs. It's a gorgeous looking watch. It has a lot of nice qualities to it, but man, the screen, when I'm wearing it, it just keeps bugging me after having spent time with some of the others. But
like the Moto
so I
360.
Yeah, the 360 has its own issues that are going to turn some people off, but in terms of design, it's a gorgeous looking timepiece. I mean, it looks like a high-end luxury kind of watch, a dress watch, something that you'd wear with a nice shirt like the ones we're all wearing today here.
Oh yeah,
we're
Guns N' Roses, baby.
Yeah, that's right. But no, I mean it's like kind of a yeah, crank that up. Uh-oh, are we gonna get pulled from YouTube now?
Nope. Because I definitely didn't hit that in his key, and
that's a good point.
I don't think they'll recognize that version.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the 360 is gorgeous. I really have enjoyed spending some time with the G-Watch R. Different vibe from the 360, but nice in its own ways. And then I'm just getting ready to spend a little time with the Sony Smartwatch 3, which kind of goes a little more a little more active, sporty kind of vibe. It's not quite as premium looking, but it has its own sort of use cases that'll appeal to a lot of people. So again, nice that we're starting to get some choice there.
Yeah, and how about the G Round? What did you think of that?
Yeah, the G-Watch R. That's which I think. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. It's in the other room right now. I'm really liking that one a lot. It's it doesn't quite have the same premium sort of feel that the 360 has. If you look at the back of it, it's plastic on the back. It's a little kind of clunkier looking. It's got the big lugs on the end, and it looks more like a casual watch, I guess you'd say. But there's a place for that, and it's great to use. The screen is fantastic. They used a new kind of display technology. It looks great indoors. It looks great outdoors. The 360. I wrote an article about this last week, has some issues in that in its dimmed mode, when you're not using it and it's kind of in that scaled down black and white state, it has a weird thing where it doesn't just stay on, it turns off and on depending on how you move your wrist, and that can be a little annoying. The G-Watch R just looks fantastic all the time, even when you're not actively using it. It's got an actual colored display that stays in that. Just realized the sun is really coming in. If you're wondering why I have spots all over my face,
white spots, yeah.
I was like, what is it?
It's the sun. God, stupid
sun.
But
no, the G-Watch is great. I've been pretty impressed with that. Like for me right now, I'd say the 360 and the G-Watch would probably be my two favorites. But haven't gotten to the Sony yet, so maybe that'll get up there as well.
Awesome. So then on next and finally to the Chromebooks. So Chromebooks, which one do you use the most to get your work done?
I use the Pixel. I am a big fan of the Pixel. It's it's pricey.
You're the other person that has one? No.
Right. I'm one of the three people who own them. Yes, indeed. Are you a Pixel owner yourself?
No, unfortunately. I wish I was, though. It's a gorgeous device.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great computer, and it's, you're going to hear a lot of like, oh my God, you paid that much money for it. But, it's one of those, if you're using it as your main computer or using it a lot, it's a gorgeous system, it's great to use. It's certainly not going to be what you're going to recommend for most people going out to buy a Chromebook because, it's not exactly cheap. But
it's all about the price.
Yeah, but no, on the Chromebook front too, there's some good options out there now, which for a long time I've been groaning and complaining that we don't have any mid-range devices. It's like you can either go and spend a fortune on the Pixel or get kind of a crappy system with a screen that hurts your eyes. But just in the last few months, we've got probably my favorite all-around Chromebook. For most price, like a more kind of normal, affordable price point right now would be the Toshiba Chromebook 2, which has a 1080p display. It's an IPS screen, which resolution aside, that just makes a world of difference. I mean, when you look at the typical low-end Chromebook, the problem with the screen is not so much the resolution. That's part of it, but it's mainly that it uses this low-quality TN display where it's, just looks all grainy and awful viewing angles. So the Chromebook 2, Toshiba's, step things up in resolution, but more importantly, if you ask me, goes with that higher quality panel that just is great to look at. So if I were to get one today, and if I weren't looking to spend a whole ton of money on it, that's the one I would probably go with. And in a twist of good timing, I'll actually have a pretty in-depth article on, kind of a buying guide to Chromebooks right now in the next day or two. So this is something I'm actively thinking about as we speak. Good timing.
That's awesome. And so last two questions. Kevin, you're up first.
All right. So one other thing, I know you mentioned, the Chromebooks, and we've talked about the Android Wear. What do you kind of see going forward with the Android Wear platform as it is? I mean, I know there's a lot of discussion of whatever, now that Lollipop is starting to roll out to more and more devices, what Google is going to do with the newer versions of Android Wear. We're coming up, we've got a few months to go before we hit a year with Android Wear. What do you kind of see with it going forward?
Well, it'll be really interesting to see. We've seen a little bit of progress already with Wear itself. Aside from bug fixes, just some little tweaks where you can store a small amount of music locally. It's not the greatest setup, but you can do it. Watches can run GPS by themselves, which so far the Sony Smartwatch 3 is the only one that has the hardware to be able to do that. But
sure.
It'll be really interesting to see from here where they go. I think the big thing for me right now is going to be to watch the hardware. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of leaps and bounds, because the first generation has its strengths, but it's been a little more limited depending on the device in terms of stamina, in terms of display quality. And I don't know, I don't think on a smartwatch you need a quad HD screen, but there's room to bump things up a little, and I think in that second generation we'll start to see some of those improvements, as well as just seeing more different kinds of devices. When Wear first launched, we heard about all these traditional watchmakers like Fossil and companies like that that were going to be getting in the game. So I think it'll be cool. Hopefully that's still on tap, and we'll see stuff like that, because I mean those guys obviously know how to design watches, and if you combine their watch design know-how with some tech know-how, we could get some pretty interesting products from those kind of folks. Not to mention HTC, supposedly rumors may have a smartwatch coming out sometime next year-ish, so be cool to see what they could come up with too.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna have to. Make sure they keep up with the game as Apple releases their Apple Watch, in the spring.
Yeah, right. That's gonna be a whole thing, and then Apple's gonna pioneer like they always do. No, I give Apple a lot of crap, but whatever.
They'll innovate it. They will.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be. They've already done it with the Pay. So yeah, I always see those commercials. I'm like, where were those commercials when? Yeah. Anyways,
Google, all that other stuff.
So as being in Google's ecosystem as heavily as you are, what are your thoughts about Android and how they can continue their smartphone dominance in the world market? And the second part to that question is, what about privacy concerns? Go.
Oh wow. That's a big meatball to throw out in the air. Okay. Well, what specifically, like privacy concerns? What do you mean? Anything in particular, or just in general?
Yeah, just kind of in general, because we see. I mean, and I'm not faulting them for this, but they sell the information to advertisers to customize content for you, which is cool. In a way that I can have customized stuff my way instead of, do you hate Obama or whatever that comes across my ads, as I'm browsing and that sort of thing. Maybe there's something about maybe the next iWatch or the LG G3 or something. You know what I mean? There's something customized towards me.
Yeah, I think a lot of that consumer education goes a long way, because when you talk to people who have heard maybe something or read an article, about something with privacy, and maybe your phone or your computer is listening in and knows what you're doing and all that. Mm-hmm. Once people understand what's really going on, most people aren't quite as freaked out about it. And the truth is, if you are, you have the control to stop or turn off or opt out of location tracking features and things like that. So it kind of comes down to how much you want to give up in order to get these features back. If you don't want Google paying attention to your search history, you can turn that off on your phone or in your browser or what have you, but then you're not going to get recommendations. You're not going to get the power of like what Google Now can give you. So, again, it all comes down to kind of trade-offs and how much you're comfortable with. Maybe Google has a little more room to go, especially with smartphones being so personal, and kind of making sure people are aware of exactly what they are and aren't doing and what you can take control of if you're not comfortable with that. So in terms of Android just on the whole, and in its growth. I mean, it's been pretty dominant if you look at the universal mobile, market share numbers for a while. So every time there's a new iPhone, iOS version, iPad, anything Apple's coming out with, you always start seeing all the articles from people and quotes from pundits about, this is the death of Android now. It's going to take over. And
yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. It's been all these years. It's been any number of new device releases. Going back, it was first when the Verizon iPhone was coming out, back, when the iPhone was originally just the AT&T exclusive. Then it was, oh man, when it's on different carriers, Android's going to be dead.
Right.
Yeah, people only use Android because you can only get the iPhone on AT&T, or because you can only get it on 2 carriers. And I mean, you look at it, and time after time, the numbers move a little this way, a little that way, but no one's going anywhere. I mean, Apple's going to have a strong, dedicated user base. More than likely, that's not going to change. And
right.
With all of the Android manufacturers and all the work Google's doing to move the OS itself forward, it'd be pretty shocking if it were to suddenly disappear or just become a small minority of the mobile ecosystem at any point in the foreseeable future now.
Well, especially with how mature Android has become, and how. And let's face it, the U.S. is the only place where Apple's even close in numbers. On the world scale, it's not. It's not even close. And a lot of that has to do with money. I mean, honestly, when Apple didn't announce that iPhone lower or cheaper edition back when the 5C came out, I was really shocked because I thought that would have went a long way on the global scale. But it didn't do that, and the U.S. is not indicative of the rest of the world as far as iPhone to Android, or iOS, to Android, and outside of the U.S., Apple's got kind of an uphill battle in some of these other countries, and price has so much to do with it because people cannot afford their hardware.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you look at, like the success Motorola had with the Moto G.
Right.
Which was, at a really affordable price, unlocked off contract, and seemed to have a huge amount of success in the U.S., but even more so out of the U.S. from what I've heard. And then, Google's kind of trying to pick up on that with their own Android One initiative, which I guess seems maybe they're running into some retailer issues. But I mean, they're certainly trying to build on that. And yeah, like you said, that's an area where people like us tend to focus more on these flagships and on the high-end U.S. phones, but a lot of the growth is coming from those kind of places, both locally in the U.S. and even more so internationally. So it'll be interesting to see if Apple, at some point starts to target a little more that sort of mid to low end. I mean, they have to some extent, but not to the extent that, if you look across the board on Android, that it's available.
Right, exactly. And with them building a $5 billion spaceship, essentially, in Cupertino. No, thank you so much for being on, JR Raphael. Haha. Thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us, what does the future look like for you? Where can people find out what it is you do and all of that?
Yeah, well, the easiest place is if you just go, my own website is jrstart.com, and that's got links to all my stories everywhere. You can follow me, Google+, Twitter, places where I'm most active. So, yeah, the year's starting to quiet down, but there's still some interesting stuff ahead. Like I said, I've got a piece coming on Chromebook kind of buying guide and doing something similar for Android and winding things down in style. So we'll try to have some fun before the year's out.
Going to be at CES this year?
I am not. No CES for me. Are you guys going to be out there?
I will be.
I
will be out there.
This guy.
It's always a zoo. Yeah. It's funny because, Android news is not usually so big there anymore because everybody's holding their own events for all the big stuff. But yeah, I'm sure there will be. I mean, there's always cool stuff to see, and all the manufacturers will be there. It seems like there will almost definitely be previews of some stuff, so it'll be cool to see what comes out of it.
Yep. Yeah, it's hopefully we get a lot of stuff that comes out of it. In any case, like I said, you're an awesome guy. I hope people follow you and what you do if people are interested. Definitely in the ecosystem, Android in general, and just look to follow you and pick up that kind of stuff. So thank you again for being on. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. Well, you have a great and wonderful rest of your day, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, JR. So we'll move into the tech news here.
The tech news of the day. No, the tech news for the last week. First of all, awesome interview. I appreciate that he stuck around for way past. We just need to tell people, just take 2 hours out of your day and plan on spending it with JJ and Kevin, which probably, not going to lie, best 2 hours of your life. Yeah. So if that ends our interview segment, please contact at thetechinformist.com. For if you want to comment or contribute on any of the stories we just talked about or any of the questions we asked our guest, or if you want us to elaborate or whatever the case may be is. So let's get into the news rundown. Sorry, Kevin, I cut you off.
Yeah, I do have to apologize for being a little bit more quiet during that interview than normal. Apparently, there's some landscapers outside collecting leaves or doing something, so a lot of noise. I was wondering. I looked down and I didn't want there to be any kind of like weird pauses in between the thing, so I was like, he's got himself muted, so I'm just gonna go with it. Yeah, I'm like, it's just a little crazy out there. So, but that's okay because it's gonna be the news hour with Kevin because he's got I looked at the show notes and I was like, holy, what the? Yeah, I kind of loaded it up today. Yeah, he kind of loaded up. Usually he's like, now JJ, we just need to come up with 2, know. Yeah, and then you've got like 5. Yeah. Yeah, you even have it in little quotation marks. How dare you? All right, let's get into it. I'm excited about this. Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about, last week Sony celebrated 20 years of PlayStation gaming. So, I mean, back in 95, I got my first that's when I first got the PlayStation. It had been out for a little while, obviously. And I still remember one of the first games I got, I believe, was Need for Speed and also Destruction Derby. So just really cool Demolition Derby style game, and really I still like that game. So it's really cool. So congrats on to Sony for 20 years of PlayStation. They're releasing 12,000 I think it's 12,300 limited edition designed PlayStation 4 units that are kind of colored, with a classic gray PlayStation 1 appearance to it. So I think that's really neat to see them do something like that. Dude, totally. That is really cool. It's got some people who don't even care about PlayStation thinking about buying one of those things. I'm like, what are you? You're not going to do that. Yeah. It costs too much money just to splurge like that. Yeah, I mean the limited edition one's going to be selling for like $500, but it comes with a camera and a couple other things that actually makes that extra amount, quote unquote, worth the upgrade. But whether or not it's something that you want, those extra pieces of equipment, you could always sell them. But I think it'd be pretty neat to have one of those limited units. I do too, Kevin. Please just continue with all your just keep going. This is going to be a whole you. I know. Okay, so, let's interview Kevin. So Kevin, what got you? No, go ahead. Your next one. Yeah. So this is this is Hour of Code week for across the country. A lot of different companies are doing it. Pluralsight's doing something. Apple is hosting an Hour of Code workshop at the retail stores this coming Thursday. I believe that's December 11th. So, stop into Apple retail stores. They're partnering with Code.org again this year to promote the Computer Science Education Week. And yes, they're going to host a free Hour of Code programming workshop on December 11th, my bad. So you can register now at apple.com and reserve your spot to go participate in that. And, as we know more and more, programming and, software languages, it's getting more and more accepted, as important as it is in today's society, that it's kind of like a new form of literacy, as I believe I read something pop across Twitter today. So I think that's really cool. No, that is cool. So Apple's the only one who's doing this? No, they're not the only ones that are doing it. It's just one that I seen a story that Apple's actually doing that, and I know we're not biased here on the show. We got to show everybody some love. So obviously, if for those of you who don't watch the live show, which you should just cause, but I have my Apple stuff behind me. Got some Apple stickers there. I got an iPad 2 or iPad Air sitting over here, right there. Awesome.
So an hour of code. Well, we need multiple hours of code. We need people making money in this country. So please, if you're a listener, motivate everybody. You know what? After you listen to the show, hopefully either do it on the way into work or the way home. I know it's a long show, so you're probably going to catch it in multiple parts. But motivate somebody else. Do me a favor. Motivate somebody else. You'll be surprised about how much it motivates yourself to get stuff done.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, you're up with the next question. Next deal.
Yeah, so the FCC has said that smartphone thefts in the United States have exceeded 1 million per year. So actually, I believe, whenever you dig down into the story, this is from gigaohm.com, that back in 2013, there was approximately 3.1 million smartphones, or 3.1 million Americans had their smartphones stolen. But thankfully, the numbers are getting a little bit better because of some of the security features, like in Apple, in the iPhone with activation locks and remote kill switches. With Android, we can always just log into our Google account on the Play Store, and you can lock and even erase your device if you want to, pretty much render it unusable.
I think I can
right from the web browser.
I think I can do that. Yeah, I can do that with Windows Phone too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that even Windows Phone can do that as well.
Don't say it like even Windows Phone.
No,
don't you condescend.
Condescending.
Girl, I'll tell you what.
I got a 1520 sitting right here still.
No, I know. I'm just messing with you
today. So
yeah,
still keeping it fresh, keeping it real.
So this is interesting to me because if you've ever stolen a smartphone, which I'm sure we all have at some point,
right.
There is, well, especially if the phone is locked, right? Like if there's like a thing. How hard is it to break into these phones? I mean, why steal them if you can't use them? I mean, can you shed some light on that, Kevin, as you being the high crime lord that you are?
Mainly it's to just try to quickly sell it for, just quickly grab it and probably sell it. Before it's had a chance to be reported stolen, sell it to somebody, and you think it, and the person that's buying it unknowingly, buys it, don't even realize that it's a stolen phone.
I don't get that, because even if you were to turn the phone on, it would say put in your password, Kevin, and your name's Lakeisha. It's like it doesn't.
No,
there's no.
People have the computer in the car and they just go and do a quick factory reset on it. Boom, phone's unlocked.
So you can factory reset it without the PIN code?
You don't need a PIN code then. You just plug it in, the computer recognizes an iPhone and do a factory restore.
But, okay, I don't want to get this just to be a whole thing, but I'm pretty sure that you still have to put in like your username and password in order to reset that device.
That might be. I mean, I haven't really messed with iPhones.
You're like, JJ, I have not stolen a phone. I can't answer these questions.
But I'm just saying, not everybody locks their phones.
No, that's true.
I don't plan on losing my phone, so I don't want to have to deal with punching in a PIN every time I want to look at the phone.
I don't. If I'm just letting people know, if you try to rob me, you might as well just kill me, because I'm not losing my stuff. That's just how it goes. So your next question, because this is a good one.
All right. So the next thing is back to
I've got my head so far up my.
Yeah. So
the next story, Kevin.
Yeah. So the Xbox One sold over 720,000 units during Black Friday week in the United States, which obviously it sets a quote unquote Black Friday record. And obviously, whenever you drop the price of a console with one, maybe even two games in some cases, to $330, that's huge.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's going to get a lot more people on board for wanting to purchase these consoles.
I am happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I also see coming across the webs, the internets, if you will, the PlayStation Network down intermittently. Cyber hackers take credits.
Yeah, Sony just keeps getting hacked and hacked and hacked and hacked, and I think we mentioned that last week as well with the theatrical or
it's all James Franco's fault.
Yeah, getting trailers stolen and stuff from movies, or actually it was just entire movies stolen and pushed out there on the internet.
I know, that was insane. We did cover that. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I'm happy that Microsoft sold all those Xbox Ones. That just means more people in the ecosystem. That's great.
Yep.
So your next story, Kevin.
All right, so the next one, this is one that's really cool. I mean, growing up and always seeing space shuttle launches and stuff like that, unfortunately, I've never seen one live. But anyway, NASA this past Friday launched the new Orion rocket into outer space, and it's just a test flight, and they sent it. Gosh, how far did that thing go up into space? I know they sent it so many thousands and thousands of feet, miles, whatever it was. It's the furthest launched spacecraft designed for human passengers in like 40 years, since like the Apollo 17, and it was complete success. It launched, it made a couple orbits around the Earth, it made it splash down over in the Pacific Ocean, not too far from obviously where they wanted it to drop in, and so it's a success. I mean, who knows what's going to come from this, but Lockheed Martin is working on these Orion spacecrafts. So it looks like they're going to be start sending some more humans out into space, and I never know.
So
maybe
cool,
maybe we'll go back to the moon again. Maybe this will be the start of actually sending people to Mars on like that thing we've talked about earlier this year, where people have signed up for that one-way ticket to go colonize
So creepy
Mars.
to me, dude.
Yeah.
That's so creepy to me. I'd freak out halfway there. I'd be like, I want to go back.
Yeah, I changed my mind.
I changed my mind. Oh my god, I changed my mind. So this is really cool just because it went around the Earth twice, and it was like I said on the other show, like a bullet, like around the world twice. And the fact that all of this stuff worked, and recent success with the Mars rover, how they were able to. If you haven't watched any of this stuff and you're a geek, dude, there's something the matter with you, man. Like, because this is really cool, like real life stuff, not like the Swiss Army knife lightsaber stuff. This is real awesome stuff, and I hope people get a chance to go check that out. Tell me what iBill is, and how can it help blind people tell what the value of their money paper is?
Yeah, I seen this the other day, and I thought, man, that is really, really cool, because I've always wondered, we always kind of sit here and kind of bat around the idea, what sense do you feel you could live with losing? And I mean, I honestly am not even sure which one I could say, but this, obviously, like you mentioned, deals with people who are blind, and the challenge of knowing what value currency you're holding in your hand. Are you holding a dollar bill, or are you holding a 20 or a 5 or a 10 or even $100 bill? Well, the iBill is, no relation to Apple, so I don't really know why they went with iBill other than trying to cash in on that.
Yeah.
Now this device you can put. It's kind of looks like something you would clip on your belt, but you just slide a dollar bill or whatever value into it, and it actually will read that and either give an auditory, it'll tell you the amount, this is a $5 bill or something like that, or it'll give you a certain beeps or vibrations, something like that, so visually impaired people can tell what bill they're getting ready to hand over to a cashier or somebody. I think that's really, really cool. I think, Orbit Research will sell the iBill for $120 with free shipping on online orders. The iBill will also be the first currency reader sold by the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, which will begin shipping the device on January 2nd.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, there's claims that it has a better than 99.9% accuracy rate, and says the iBill can be upgraded to recognize new banknote designs in the future. However, the device can't recognize a counterfeit bill. So, kind of in a way, you might start seeing some retailers maybe, instead of doing that quick little, where they draw on a $100 bill or something to verify its legitimacy, you could just run it through there and say, oh, nope, we got a counterfeit bill here, and maybe catch more of these people that are passing counterfeit money, right then and there, instead of them getting out and costing, pretty much everybody else, the money.
The money. It's all about the Bens, Kev. It's all about the Benjamins.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, that wraps up your particular part, but not mine.
Yeah, you got a couple things there.
I got a whole load, lots of things, but I'm gonna kind of burn through some of this stuff just because of most people who don't know. I'll just give you the high level stuff because that's all that matters. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was we just recently got an email from our AT&T peeps talking about the Samsung Gear virtual reality sales gets underway, meaning that. Kevin is waving his wand across the meaning that you can get a gear so you can have your smartphone closer to your face, which is what, frankly, we all want, in a virtual reality headset for $199, or I'm sure there's a contractual version in there. But it's essentially a way because to play virtual reality games using your Note 4, your Samsung Galaxy Note 4. So more news to come out on that as the next week comes. I just wanted to throw that out there because that was something that was, when I saw it, I'm like, this is ridiculous. You can always count on AT&T doing just like everything. They're just like Samsung. They just throw everything against the wall. Yeah. But I don't hate them for it.
Do a lot of the partnerships.
As a geek, dude, I love that stuff. Love that stuff. Okay, now let's get into some more stuff that you may or may not like. So, all right, there's been a lot of stuff going on with iTunes. iTunes arguably was my gateway into digital media, and a lot of other people's. And the iPod was my way, and a lot of people's way to digital media. So what I mean by that is whenever you got an iPod and you put maybe songs from your CD, like people used to take CDs, they put it in their computers and they used to rip them and take that music and put it on or whatever, and then shoot it down to their iPods before the iPhone came out and even after the iPhone came out. Well, iTunes, instead of recognizing that those songs and that material, when it was putting it on the iPod, wasn't doing that because the iTunes would not want their rival services to be, to people go on other, third-party sites or whatever and download this content and then be able to use iTunes to manage the music, which is, it's kind of a crappy thing to do, Kev. I'm not going to lie. That's really jacked up. Right. So they're being sued, $350 million. But there was some stuff that kind of came up during the suit. One being one of the plaintiffs didn't legitimately own an iPod during the time in which iTunes did that. That's still one of those things where it's like you still did something that was jacked up. So I see that as a little rough and kind of a tarnish on Apple a little bit. So bad, not good. Shouldn't have done that.
Right. I mean, I have to say, back whenever I had my iPod, I never really noticed any issues. So.
I didn't either. But the fact that it happened, not cool. You know what I mean? And it's again one of those things that these companies should be a little bit more open to that, because you've got somebody using iTunes. Why not make that product the best product it can be? Even if other people put their stuff on there, whatever, make it the best it can be. I don't know. So that's one of the complaints I had. But I wanted you all to know that because maybe you need to go back through your collection and see what you do and you don't have. Supposedly it's fixed, but, just to make sure. The next story that I have is Barnes & Noble and Microsoft had a over $300 million investment together, partnership, but that's now gone because Barnes & Noble announced that its Microsoft stake in the Nook business, the 2-year agreement has been terminated, and the reason for that, let's just be honest, was Barnes & Noble came out and announced a new Nook, and it was basically just a Samsung Galaxy Tab and a tablet. That just had Nook services on it. I mean, this is ridiculous. Of course, you're gonna, it's running Android. It's not running Microsoft's Windows operating system. So, duh. But, that's tough, and it's going to affect the relationship. Which the Nook app on Windows was phenomenal. I thought it was really, really great. But now the Nook app for Windows Phone is not going to come out, and now the Nook app and then a more deeper integration with the Microsoft ecosystem isn't going to happen, which is extremely frustrating and sad, because that could have been really, really cool. So those things are bad. I don't like when partnerships fall through. It's just make all this stuff for us. As a consumer, I want everything.
Yeah. The one interesting thing in this story, though, is that what Paul Thurrott mentioned was that Microsoft had tried to purchase Nook outright for $1 billion back in May of 2013. So I kind of guess Barnes & Noble's, I would think they're kicking themselves. I would think, because
I would think too. Because right now they're just messing around with $300 million when they could have just said, you know what, let's just give it to Microsoft for $100 billion. And Microsoft's the type that, because of where they're at, would have not completely jacked up Barnes & Noble's brick and mortar stores. They would have worked on some partnership agreement. So boo on you, Nook and Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
Even though I love your stores, by the way.
I know. I do miss. What is it? Borders was the one.
Borders.
I go to all the time. I really miss that store.
Yeah, me too. Oh, those were the days. So the next couple of stories I just make really quick. You can pick up a Lumia now for $29. You can pick up it on Amazon for $63.99. Windows phones. You can get some low-cost stuff. Microsoft's 12 Days of Christmas are here. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what else comes out. Also, on the Kevin note, I wanted to talk about Google finally releases a stable version of what's called Android Studio. It's their first stable version of their own IDE. So we should be seeing more of that coming out soon. So if you want to comment or contribute on any of the stories that you heard today or in previous episodes, visit us on Twitter. Or on Google Plus, or on really anywhere, but really Twitter is the best place to get a hold of us, at Tech Informist, or contact at thetechinformist.com. Now for our Tech Ticker segment of the week, this is your financial news. This week I decided to go with manufacturers, so let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. Lenovo is arguably the number one PC sales manufacturer in the world. So their open was $27.11. Guess what the change was? $27.03. Not much. The reason why there's not much change there, I would simply just say because there's nothing new to report and there's nothing good or bad, so that's why it's flat. So the news effect, Lenovo is still the number one PC manufacturer. China is where they're based out of, is buying up tech companies at a very rapid pace this year, outpacing any other previously years before this. The PC maker is hoping Windows 10 grows PC sales, as we see PC sales not dipping as much as analysts had thought. Lenovo is pressured by other manufacturers of smartphones, also in China, where the high-end smartphone market sales are slowing rapidly because of third-party and like Foxconn and what happened with HTC. HTC at one point was a manufacturer, then they moved on to being their own OEM. So we're seeing a lot of that happen in China now. Predictions for this stock is stuck. And I mean, just like somebody trying to shift in from first to second or third gear in a manual transmission in neutral for some time going forward. I don't think there will be an agile enough to make any significant changes over the next year. Let's talk about Sony. Now, Sony opened at $22.21 a share, and they're closed $22.12. So again, not a lot of change there, but not a lot happened last week. But more specifically, the news effect. Sony has been in the news because of the alleged North Korea hackers attacking the company. But to be respectful of this company, they're two separate companies. There's Sony Pictures and there's the hardware manufacturing division. And they have TVs and phones and obviously the PlayStation and stuff like that. But the real news is the underwater Sony store. No, I'm just kidding. Sony is producing a very high-praised smartphone called the Z3, or and they like to say in the UK, the Z3. That's what they say for Z. Don't ask me why. I think it's a little silly too. Smartphone that will be released on multiple carriers in the U.S. However, Sony's TVs and productions, of course, of PlayStation 4 is enjoying their returns from the consumer market. My predictions for the stock: don't look for the release of the new smartphone to be the company's savior. I don't expect Sony to change or the stocks really to change at all, because they're going to benefit from the holiday season, but after that, they're going to continue to drop, as all most tech company stocks do with the first quarter of this next year. Let's talk about HP. Now, HP's been in the news, and rightfully so, but their stock has changed in a positive note, $39.02 a share to $39.55 a share. HP this year is releasing devices at a much faster and more precise way. The release of the HP Chromebooks running Google's Chrome OS, also that's a very popular with schools and low-end versions of your laptop. Also, HP doesn't want you to stop there. They have released the HP Stream line, which is coming out in the amazing lineup of affordable, nice new laptops and tablets running Windows, full Windows operating system, not the RT version. My prediction for this stock: you cannot really give I cannot give you, the listener, our listener, a really good reason for why I think this stock is going to be positive, but I just think it's going to outperform many analysts' predictions for this last quarter, and I think they're going to have a couple of dividends going forward. Now, let me round this up by saying Samsung. Samsung, no change whatsoever. So I'm not even going to bother telling you what the stock prices were. It's basically $1,100. Samsung is doing what it does. It's flooding the market with a bunch of different devices, but Samsung is getting some fatigue from releasing so many different devices over the last year. Watch the latest commercials with the two actor and actresses, whatever. One of them is pregnant, one of them is not. Maybe Kevin can speak to that a little bit. I'm not sure who they are, but I have not mentioned this enough. They will continue to dominate just the smartphone and just their overall TV. They sell TVs, they sell washers and dryers, they sell everything you could think of. So their stock isn't going to change too much anytime soon. My predictions for this stock: Samsung got rid of some people at the bottom of the company, but not at the top. So without a compelling message, Samsung will continue to be marginalized in the market. So that is my tech ticker of the week. I do not guarantee any information that you've heard on past episodes or any future episodes. This is just my guess and looking at the stock market. So now on to our application picks of the week. I'm going to take the first reins, which I never do, but I'm just going to do it now. Office Lens for Windows Phone. It's free, and I suggest you use it because it's awesome. Now, I'm a huge proponent of Windows Phone. Always have been, always will be. I have other devices, but I choose willingly to use the Windows Phone as my main device, and Windows is my main operating system. So having said that, I use Office and OneNote, and Office Lens, which is one of the lenses on the camera app, is an awesome application that you should go out and download immediately, because guess what? It has a new feature now that allows you to take pictures of a business card, and then that information be saved to your contacts. So how cool is that? Or to OneDrive, or to Word, or to OneNote. So the list goes on and on from there. And then you can open that as I think it's VFC or something or other.
VCF, I think, maybe.
VCF, thank you. Wow, Kevin, I haven't heard your voice in like 5 minutes. Okay, so that is my application pick of the week. Kevin, you're up.
And my application pick is probably one that many people already use, but it's one just in case you're not already using. If you like to watch gameplay of people playing video games and you like the Twitch channel on the internet, there's an Android and iOS app available both for free. So grab that and you can watch video gameplay. I sit here and I think back when I was a kid and back with the NES, and there was just, you had Nintendo Power and your friends. That was it. You didn't have the internet. You couldn't just go watch. Well, gosh, how's that game play? You just go and you look at the back of the box, and you had to rent the game and to see how the game was, or borrow it from a friend. Now you can sit and watch people play 24 hours a day, and it can just be various people and get tips and tricks and all kinds of things. So yeah, grab the Twitch app on Android and iOS and watch some video game play.
I think it's the PG version of voyeurism.
Kinda, in a way.
A little bit.
Better than
It's
chat
funny.
roulette or something like that. Ugh.
Oh my God! Don't even. I can't believe you
Yeah,
said.
there's a
Oh,
rabbit hole you
God.
don't want to go down.
Dude, my brain is forever damaged because of that. So, thank you again to our guest, JR Raphael. I really appreciate him being on the show. Thank you, Kevin, for all your wonderful stories and everything you
No
do,
problem,
my
my
friend.
pleasure. It's fun stuff. It's what we like to do.
Hey, you know, it's what we do. It's what we
Right.
do, man. It's
And
it's
just
how we do's it.
yeah, and just real quick, again, we mentioned CES a little while ago with JR. Unfortunately, he's not going, but I'm going to be there. So hopefully, if anybody that listens to this show is going to CES and would like to, meet up, whether it's during the actual day of the conferences, walking through the different halls, let me know. Maybe we'll check out a booth together, or maybe have a drink after one of the conference days is over. So let me know.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, definitely. Hit Kevin up and just walk up to him and give him a big hug. That won't freak him out at all.
No, not one bit. Yeah, just watch out. I get a little crazy with elbows sometimes. So.
Yeah, he may look shorter, but he knows how to throw a few elbows. All right.
Gotta watch some
So
stock.
so everybody from the entire crew, consider yourself informed. We're out.